Jennifer stands in her suburban kitchen at 7 a.m., watching Mike pour coffee into his travel mug. The familiar urge rises in her throat like bile. He's filling it too full again. It's going to spill all over his car seat, just like yesterday and the day before that. Her mouth opens, the words, "You're doing it wrong," forming on her lips when something makes her freeze mid-breath. Coffee pot suspended in air. She stares at this man she married 12 years ago and realizes she's about to manage his coffee making for the third time this week. This isn't about coffee. Jennifer runs million-dollar projects at work. She coordinates teams across 3 time zones, manages budgets that could buy houses, and somehow keeps 17 moving parts synchronized without breaking a sweat. Those same skills that make her indispensable at the office? She's been bringing them home every single day. Mike used to surprise her with weekend adventures, showing up at her apartment with hiking boots and a mischievous grin. Now he retreats to video games after dinner, shoulders hunched like he's protecting himself from something. From her, she realizes, with a sickening twist in her stomach, they've become management, consultant, and resistant employee in their own home. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Mike asks, catching her stare. His voice carries that edge it's developed over the past few years. The defensive tone of someone who knows criticism is coming, but doesn't know what form it'll take this time. "Nothing," Jennifer says, but her silence feels loaded. She watches him grab his keys, kiss her cheek with the mechanical efficiency of habit, and head out the door. The kiss lands somewhere near her temple, missing its mark. When did he stop aiming properly? When did she stop caring that he missed? Later that morning, Jennifer finds herself at Starbucks, watching herself say, "Good morning. Could I get a medium latte with oat milk, please?" to the barista. Her voice is warm, patient. When the barista apologizes for the wait, Jennifer smiles genuinely and says, "No problem at all. Take your time." She tips generously and thanks him twice. The drive home is 12 minutes of uncomfortable revelation. She just gave a complete stranger more courtesy in 5 minutes than she'd given her husband in 5 days. The man she promised to love forever gets barked orders about coffee, temperatures, and reminder lectures about taking out the trash. The 20-year-old barista who misspelled her name gets warmth, patience, and gratitude. She's been treating Mike worse than she treats someone she doesn't even know. That night, Mike sits on the couch, controller in hand, lost in some online world where his competence isn't questioned every 30 seconds. Jennifer hovers in the doorway, watching the back of his head, remembering when he used to look up and smile when she entered a room. Now he doesn't even turn around. "Mike?" she says. He doesn't pause his game. "Do you think I'm—" She stops. How do you ask someone if you've been suffocating them? "Do you think I criticize you too much?" The game goes silent. Mike's shoulders tense. He sets down the controller and finally turns to face her, and what she sees in his eyes makes her stomach drop. It's not anger. It's something much worse. It's resignation. "Jen," he says quietly, "I can't do anything right in your eyes. So why try?" The words hit her like cold water. This isn't about her being occasionally critical or him being overly sensitive. This is about something much more dangerous. She's been creating the exact behavior she's been criticizing. Mike hasn't become lazy and withdrawn by nature. He's suffocating. You can't simultaneously cut off someone's emotional oxygen and expect them to give you their best self. Marriage is a respiratory system, Jennifer realizes, with growing horror. Respect is the invisible oxygen that keeps everything else alive. When you cut it off, slowly, steadily, with good intentions and helpful corrections, everything starts to die. The person who used to light up when you walked in the room begins to tense when they hear your voice. The man who used to surprise you with adventures retreats behind defensive walls. The marriage that started with two people who genuinely liked each other becomes a daily exercise in management and resistance. Jennifer has been performing CPR on a relationship she's been killing one helpful suggestion at a time. "I don't mean to criticize you," she whispers. But even as she says it, she knows it's not true. She means every correction, every improvement, every better way of doing things. She's been suffocating him with good intentions, then wondering why he can't breathe. Mike looks at her for a long moment, and she sees something flicker across his face. Hope, maybe, or maybe just exhaustion. "I know you don't mean to," he says. "But Jen, every day I come home and brace myself for what I did wrong, what I forgot to do, what I could have done better. I'm walking on eggshells in my own house." The admission hangs between them like smoke. Jennifer wants to defend herself, to explain that she's just trying to help, that someone has to keep things running smoothly. But the words die in her throat because she's starting to understand something that terrifies her. She's not the solution to their marriage problems. She's the oxygen mask being held over the face of someone who's drowning, while she stands on their chest wondering why they won't thank her for helping them breathe. But what Jennifer doesn't know yet, what's about to change everything, is just how deep this suffocation goes, and how many ways she's been cutting off the air supply without even realizing it. The next morning, Jennifer notices something she's never paid attention to before. Mike handles their 8-year-old son's meltdown about wearing his soccer cleats, and she watches herself physically step forward, mouth opening to help. She catches herself just in time and forces herself to stay back. Mike kneels down, speaks quietly to Danny, and somehow gets the cleats on without drama. It works perfectly. But Jennifer's first thought isn't relief or gratitude, it's correction. He should have explained why the cleats are important for traction. He should have used this as a teaching moment about responsibility. He should have made Danny apologize for the tantrum. She bites her tongue so hard she tastes copper. Later, she's complaining to her sister Sarah about how she handles everything with the kids. "Mike just doesn't step up with discipline," she says, stirring her coffee with unnecessary force. "I'm always the bad guy while he gets to be the fun parent." "When's the last time you let him be the disciplinarian?" Sarah asks. Jennifer opens her mouth to answer and realizes she can't. Every time Mike starts to address a behavior issue, she jumps in. Not because he's failing, but because her way is better, more thorough, more educational, more everything. "Oh," she whispers. The pattern becomes impossible to ignore once she starts looking for it. Mike begins explaining to Danny why hitting his sister isn't acceptable, and Jennifer interrupts with a more comprehensive approach that includes natural consequences and emotional intelligence coaching. Mike starts to handle a bedtime resistance situation, and Jennifer swoops in with the routine she's perfected over years of trial and error. It's not just parenting. Jennifer watches herself do it everywhere. Mike pays bills online, but she double-checks everything and reorganizes his filing system. He plans their date night, but she suggests improvements to the restaurant choice and timing. He tries to comfort her after a difficult day at work, but she explains why his approach isn't what she needs right now. The man who used to make decisions with confidence has become someone who asks permission for everything. "Should I call the plumber about the sink?" he asks one evening. Jennifer almost says yes, automatically, then stops. "It's your house too. You don't need my permission to call a plumber." Mike stares at her. I figured you'd want to research which plumber to call, compare prices, read reviews, And there at Island, she's trained him to check with her before making any decision because her research is always more thorough, her choices always more informed, her way always better. Competence is like a language. If you never let someone speak, they lose their voice. 3 nights later, Jennifer listens to her neighbour Karen complaining about her husband Tom at book club. He's completely checked out, Karen says. I handle the finances, the social calendar, the kids' schedules, the house repairs, everything. He just comes home and watches television. When did he check out? Jennifer asks, though she's starting to suspect the answer. Gradually, I guess. He used to handle the money, but I'm better with spreadsheets. He used to plan our vacations, but I'm more detail-oriented. He used to be involved with the kids' activities, but honestly, he'd forget half the stuff anyway. Jennifer nods, recognizing the story. Karen became indispensable by making Tom dispensable. She's been stealing his competence so efficiently that now she's drowning in responsibilities while he's become a stranger in his own life. Familiarity doesn't give you permission to abandon basic human kindness. Jennifer realizes she's been confusing marriage with management, intimacy with efficiency. It's like running a household with quarterly reviews instead of late-night laughter. She speaks to her direct reports at work with more respect than she shows the man she sleeps next to every night. When her colleague suggests a different approach to a project, she says, "That's interesting. Let me think about that." When Mike suggests a different approach to anything, she explains why her way works better. She's been treating marriage like a performance review where Mike perpetually scores needs improvement. The breaking point comes on a Saturday morning. Mike is attempting to fix their garbage disposal, YouTube video playing on his phone, tools spread across the kitchen counter. Jennifer watches him struggle with the wrench for exactly 90 seconds before the familiar need to help overwhelms her good intentions. "Maybe you should call a professional," she suggests. "I don't want you to make it worse." Mike's hands go still. He doesn't look up from under the sink. "Or," she continues, unable to stop herself, "I could look up some reviews for repair companies. I saw some good ratings for Jennifer." Mike's voice is deadly quiet. "Do you think I'm stupid?" The question hangs in the air like a toxic cloud. Jennifer's first instinct is to reassure him, to explain that of course she doesn't think he's stupid, she's just trying to help. But the words stick in her throat because she's starting to understand what she's really been saying with every suggestion, every improvement, every better way. "You're not capable. You can't handle this. I don't trust you to do it right." Mike crawls out from under the sink and sits on the kitchen floor, wrench still in his hand. He looks up at her with eyes that seem older than they did 5 minutes ago. "I used to fix things," he says. "I used to solve problems. I used to make decisions. When did I become too incompetent to handle a garbage disposal?" Jennifer wants to protest, but deep down she knows the truth. Every correction has been a quiet way of saying, "I don't trust you." She's created learned helplessness in a man who used to build furniture from scratch and rewire electrical outlets. The garbage disposal gurgles ominously. Mike doesn't move to fix it. He doesn't move at all. He just sits there on the kitchen floor, looking at her like she's a stranger who's been living in his house for years, slowly convincing him he's not capable of maintaining his own life. And Jennifer realizes, with a terror that makes her hands shake, that she may have suffocated their marriage so thoroughly that resuscitation might be impossible. The transformation begins with a single word Jennifer forces herself not to say. Monday morning, Mike reaches for the thermostat. Jennifer's mouth opens automatically. It's too early to turn on the heat. They should wait until October, the electric bill, but she clamps it shut. Watches him adjust the temperature. says nothing. The house gets warmer. The world doesn't end. Tuesday, he loads the dishwasher his way, plates facing the wrong direction according to her system. She physically leaves the room rather than reorganize them. When she returns an hour later, the dishes are clean. Spotless, actually. By Wednesday, something shifts in Mike's posture. His shoulders aren't permanently braced for impact anymore. I'm thinking about replanting the front flower bed, he mentions over breakfast. Jennifer's brain immediately catalogues improvements. Soil testing, drainage considerations, seasonal bloom schedules. Instead, she hears herself say, "That sounds great. What are you thinking of planting?" Mike blinks. Then talks for 10 minutes about native perennials and color combinations. When did he learn so much about gardening? She realizes with a start that he's always known this stuff. She's just never given him space to share it. The real breakthrough comes 2 weeks later. Their daughter Emma is struggling with a friendship conflict at school, tears streaming down her face at the dinner table. Jennifer's instinct is to swoop in with a comprehensive, emotional coaching session, but something makes her hesitate. She looks at Mike. "Dad," Emma says, turning to him instead of her. "Sophia said my art project was weird and everyone laughed." Mike sets down his fork. "That sounds really hard. Tell me more about what happened." Jennifer watches, fascinated, as he listens without rushing to solutions. Asks questions without leading Emma toward predetermined answers. Validates her feelings without dismissing the complexity of childhood friendships. When Emma finally stops crying and goes upstairs to call her grandmother, Jennifer stares at her husband like she's seeing him for the first time. "Where did you learn to do that?" she asks. Mike gives her a look she can't quite read. "I've always known how to talk to our kids, Jen. You've just never let me do it." The sentence is delivered without anger or accusation, which somehow makes it hit harder than any fight they've ever had. 3 weeks in, Jennifer starts noticing what Mike does when she's not managing him. He researches preschools for their youngest without being asked, coordinates carpools with other parents, handles a plumbing emergency so efficiently she doesn't even know it happened until she sees the invoice. The man she thought had become passive and disengaged was actually just waiting for permission to exist in his own life. "You seem different lately," her friend Maria observes over lunch, more relaxed. Jennifer considers this. She feels lighter, but not because her responsibilities have decreased. She feels lighter because she stopped carrying the weight of everyone else's competence. "I stopped trying to be everyone's boss," she says, "including my husband's." The most dramatic change happens during their first real argument in months. Mike disagrees with Jennifer's approach to their teenage son's curfew violation. In the old pattern, he would have eventually capitulated or withdrawn entirely. Instead, he presents his reasoning clearly and stands his ground when she pushes back. "I think natural consequences work better than lectures in this situation," he says. "But he needs to understand why," Jennifer starts, then stops herself. "Tell me more about your thinking." They negotiate. They compromise. They reach a solution that incorporates both perspectives. Afterward, Jennifer realizes she can't remember the last time they collaborated as partners instead of supervisor and subordinate. The night she knows their marriage has fundamentally shifted is the night Mike initiates a conversation about their finances. Not asking permission or seeking approval, but sharing information and requesting input as an equal partner. He's done research, compared options, developed recommendations. He presents everything clearly and waits for her thoughts. "When did you start paying attention to our retirement planning?" she asks. "I never stopped," Mike says quietly. "You just stopped asking what I thought." Jennifer discovers that transformation has a specific sound. It's the absence of defensive silence. Mike starts sharing opinions about movies, restaurants, parenting strategies, vacation destinations. Opinions she didn't even know he had because she'd been providing all the opinions for both of them. But the most powerful change is the one Jennifer sees in herself. She stops being exhausted by decisions that aren't hers to make. She stops feeling responsible for outcomes she can't control. When Mike chooses a different route to their son's soccer game and hits traffic, she doesn't say, "I told you so." When his method for organizing the garage looks chaotic to her, she doesn't reorganize it later. When he handles a parent-teacher conference differently than she would have, she trusts his judgment. "You look happy," Mike says one evening, finding her reading on the couch instead of managing household logistics. "I forgot what it felt like not to be in charge of everything," she admits. "I forgot what it felt like to be trusted with anything," he replies. They're rediscovering something that got buried under years of management and resistance. They actually like each other. Mike makes her laugh with observations she'd forgotten he was capable of making. She finds herself genuinely curious about his thoughts instead of immediately offering improvements. They're becoming partners again instead of adversaries. The final principle crystallizes during a dinner party 6 weeks later. Jennifer watches herself naturally defer to Mike when guests ask about their recent home renovation project. Not because she doesn't have opinions, but because she trusts his expertise and genuinely wants to hear his perspective. The conversation flows. Mike lights up. Their friends comment later on how connected they seem. But here's what no one tells you about letting people breathe. When you stop cutting off their air supply, they don't just survive, they flourish. Mike isn't just the man she married anymore. He's become someone even better because he finally has space to grow. One evening, Jennifer and Mike stand in front of the television debating what to watch. She feels the old reflex jump in, explain why her documentary choice is more educational. Instead, she stays quiet. Mike picks an action movie. 90 minutes later, they're both laughing at a ridiculous car chase. It wasn't her choice, but it was their moment. At the grocery store, Jennifer reaches for the shopping list. Then she pauses. "Why don't you plan dinner tonight?" she says. Mike grabs ingredients she wouldn't have chosen, spices she's never used. That evening, the meal isn't perfect, but their kids ask for seconds, and Jennifer realizes she isn't the only capable cook in the family. Even something as small as driving becomes an experiment. Jennifer usually navigates with precision, correcting every turn. One Saturday, she lets Mike choose the route. They get lost, end up at a farmer's market they'd never seen before, and spend the afternoon eating peaches in the sun. A wrong turn turned into a memory. And here's the lesson. Letting go doesn't mean losing control. It means creating space for both of you to show up fully. When Jennifer stayed quiet, she discovered laughter. When she stepped back in the kitchen, she discovered her husband's creativity. When she stopped directing the car, she discovered an adventure. So tonight, try this. Hold back one correction. Let your partner lead once and watch what happens in that space. Because marriage doesn't suffocate from lack of love, it suffocates from lack of oxygen. Give your partner air. Give your marriage breath. And you just might discover laughter, creativity, and adventure waiting on the other side